What's up everyone, OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to be talking about something that I wanted to get to earlier, but there was just so much content from E3. I did have to delay it just a little bit, but we are finally here, and we're talking about how the Legend of Zelda sequel, or the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, could become the best game of all time. Now, here's the thing, guys. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is one of my favorite games of all time. I definitely put it in my top 5, but I think the sequel even has a chance to be the best game of all time for me and for many other people out there, especially if we're looking at it from like a ratings wise. I think Breath of the Wild 2 can fix so many things from the first game because the first game did so well, yet there was a number of things wrong. Now, here's the thing, guys. We're not going to be going over stuff like, oh, improve the frame rate or make sure that there's no frame rate dips or something like that, or the graphics in terms of resolution. We're not going to be going over things like that. That is a given that hopefully they optimize those type of things. I'm talking about stuff that they can do to improve the overall gameplay, direction, story elements, things like that. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right into it. And let's start off with the weapon system in the game. Now, the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild uses a very unique system than any other Zelda game, because most Zelda games, you're pretty much just using the same Master Sword over and over. Now, this game gives you the option for the Master Sword that will dissipate over a little bit of time, but otherwise you can use a bunch of other weapons, and they are kind of flimsy. They break pretty easily. Some of them have some extra durability that you can add onto there, but overall, it's very mixed on the weapon system, and I think there's a way to actually make it to where both sides are happy, people who like it and people who don't like it. Simply add a weapon forging system, crafting, to where if a weapon breaks, okay, the weapon is broken. Maybe it does way less damage than what it would have done before, but then you can actually take that weapon, take it back to a forge, back at your house, or there can be like portable forges or whatever the case is, and you can reinforce that weapon with extra durability or upgrades on it. So it makes sense that the people who still want the weapon breaking mechanic will still get that because there's still strategy based around it, but then the people who don't want to lose their favorite weapons don't have to lose their favorite weapons and don't have to be constantly looking and carrying and worrying about item slots and stuff like that for weapons. So I think that you actually satisfy both crowds when you do it that way. Now, the next thing that they can do is improved story elements. Now, for me personally, I'm not huge on Legend of Zelda stories. I'm huge on lore and the timeline and stuff like that, but I'm not huge on how they progress their stories in the games. So I actually like Breath of the Wild story, but for other people, that seemed to be an issue. And that was one of the things in terms of what the community, the PlayerEssence community, had to say about the story. So if they can improve some of the story elements, make it kind of like how they had it before with some of the stuff in there, I think that's another way that this game becomes one of the greatest games, if not the greatest game of all time. Now, the next thing is maintain the no limits gameplay. What I mean by that is that the no boundaries. When you go out to the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, the world is your oyster. Glide around, you can just use anything that you want to use, you can climb up to different places. It really had no restrictions on what you can do, where you went, and when you did it. Don't make it to where it's like the linear path, or to where you have to go here, you have to go there, you have to go there, like other Legend of Zelda games. And that's the thing that I necessarily didn't like about Legend of Zelda games before. It was restrictive in like, you have to go to this place, you have to do this dungeon in order to get this item, in order to beat this boss, and you go in that order. And Breath of the Wild said, no, you don't actually have to do any of that. You can play what you want to, you can go where you want to, you can fight who you want to, and if you don't even want to do a single shrine, you don't have to solve any puzzles if you don't want to. You can go fight Ganon from the very beginning if you want. And to me, that is the true spirit or the essence of the Legend of Zelda. That's what they were trying to go for at the beginning when they made the Legend of Zelda 1 for the NES. That's what they were going for. It got more and more restrictive over time, but this one just opened it up, and I'm hoping that they keep that no limit gameplay, but then also add to it. How can you even make it more free than what it was before in terms of things? How can you even add more dynamic elements to the open-ended areas of the game, to the open air, as Anuma-san like to say, to the open air gameplay? So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they do that. If they're able to keep that progress and keep what they did with the original, but even expand upon it with some of these other improvements, this really could be the greatest game of all time. Now, the next thing that we're going to talk about here is more elaborate dungeons and better dungeons in the game, but please keep them optional. Previous Legend of Zelda games, you have to do this dungeon, and I talked about it just a little bit, right, when it comes to having the no limit type of gameplay to where you can go where you want. I don't want it to go back to that, right? But if you did have some really cool, hard, good dungeons that were hidden throughout Hyrule, that were kind of just there and you just ran into them and you got something amazing, so you get rewards from seeking out these elaborate dungeons, I think that would be the best thing that could be for this franchise, and that would truly propel it up for so many people, especially if they combine the story and everything that we've talked about so far. You also include elaborate dungeons that are optional, that you don't have to do, but then give you really cool rewards if you beat them or if you find them. That would be the best thing that they can do for this sequel when it comes to the Breath of the Wild 2. And I'm hoping they do that, because then I don't necessarily have to play if I don't feel like solving this dungeon. But then again, the people who love dungeons get their hard dungeon that they want, get their water temple, or get whatever the case is, but still get the open area gameplay. So I'm really hoping that they add that in for people who want that. Next up is improved boss battles. I think the boss battles in Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild aren't horrible. I think they're actually pretty good, but if they actually elaborated on them a little bit more, had more boss battles in there, and kind of put in a little bit more depth into how you beat bosses, I think that would greatly improve the gameplay that they've already established, like the Lionels and all that stuff like that. That stuff was great. I loved like those bosses that were literally just right there on the field, but you learn how to beat them pretty quickly with certain stuff. But I think that if they actually had the dungeons, then you can create more of these dungeon master bosses that are really difficult that you have to seek out. So I'm thinking that improved boss battles would definitely go a long way into making this, once again, Breath of the Wild 2, the best game of all time. Now, moving on to the next thing here, guys. This is more of a personal thing for me. Obviously, there's some people who might like this, but I don't like it. But to remove the Korok seeds. Korok seeds should not come back in any way, shape, or form. I don't feel that upgrade slots in terms of being able to carry extra weapons should be allotted to Korok seeds. And talking to a guy that's dancing around with maracas and stuff like that, that should not be something to that we're doing in the game. It is just annoying. It is not fun seeking out all these different Korok seeds. It's not even fun kind of like solving the puzzles to get the Korok seed from them. I feel that upgrades should be tied to basically like beating dungeons or getting them in chests, or just doing certain things in the game in terms of optional side quests. That should be what expands your slots in terms of what you get for weapons and items. It should not be Korok seeds. So I'm hoping that Korok seeds are removed, and if you do that, that would be a big bane in people's sight, and you don't have to sit there and program 9,000 different spots. It's 900, but whatever. All these different spots where these Korok seeds and these stupid little mini games that you play. There's no need for that. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild has more than enough mechanics that you can build into it to where it would make upgrading better than what they did. That was just a poor choice in my opinion, and what you got for getting all of them was stupid too. So hopefully they do remove the Korok seeds and make it more about actually playing the game and not sitting there running around looking for Korok seeds using some stupid type of tracker in order to get these things. It was absolutely ridiculous. So I think removing that would actually be really good for the game and make the sequel much better. All right, guys, and this is the final kicker, and I haven't talked about this really on my channel at all outside of live streams, but Zelda playable and co-op available. I think if they did both of these, not just Zelda playable to where it's a single player game, then you play as Zelda, okay, there's some parts and you switch back and forth to Link, whatever the case is, or there's only like little parts that you play as Zelda. But if Zelda was actually a fully playable character for a good part of the game, and there was also co-op available so you could play, so dad and daughter mode, or father and daughter mode, or mom and son mode, whatever the case is, whoever wants to pick up whichever character and they can play and you can explore and it splits the screen, or even better yet, you have like local co-op right there, that would truly make this game with everything that I've talked about before. And I do feel that a lot of this stuff is possible considering the engine is already done, and I'll talk about when I think the release date will be, just my own guess on that. But I feel if you make Zelda playable on top of having a co-op element that you can pick up and play, that would truly make this the greatest game of all time, because of all the cool things that you can do in the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. You can tune that for difficulty in this next one, which this Zelda game, for the most part, was the hardest one outside of like, what, Majora's Mask or something like that. This was definitely the hardest Legend of Zelda game of all time, at least in my opinion. And I've pretty much played all of them because they're all pretty easy for the most part. With the exception of like the Legend of Zelda 2, that one, Link's Awakening, that one's actually pretty tough. So we're talking about all the modern Zeldas, especially 3D Zeldas, be it that. So to me, if they did that, where you have Zelda playable and there's co-op in there, that would pretty much catapult it to the top. And if it was good, obviously if it's not like tacked on bad co-op, but if it was great co-op play, I think that would be a revolution when it comes to the Zelda franchise. How people play with their family. I think that would take things up to the next level, because you always see families enjoying Zelda, right? They will enjoy Zelda together in terms of like the story and characters and all of that, but actually having to where you can pass the controller and play to where both people can, I feel that would personally push it over the top in terms of the greatest game of all time if they added everything. And this is going off of how great The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is, and they're using the same engine. So let's talk about this, because there is a lot of discussion in terms of when this game is going to launch, and I will probably have another video talk about this more in depth, but I do feel that Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild has a chance, okay? Not saying that it's confirmed or it's going to happen 100% or anything like that, but it does have a chance at launching in the fall or holiday of 2020. And let me give you a few reasons why. One, because the game once again was built on the same engine, or it's being built on the same engine that The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was built on. Two, they said that they pretty much, in terms of DLC, they're done working on the DLC back in 2017, so they could have started up working on a new Legend of Zelda game back then. So that would give them about 3 years, 2.5, 3 years or so to be working on this game, which is plenty of time to get the game out in that amount. If you look at stuff like Majora's Mask, that was made like in a year using the same engine as Ocarina of Time. You look at a game like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, that was made in about 2 years after Xenoblade Chronicles X was done, because they're using the same engine, whereas going from Xenoblade Chronicles to Xenoblade Chronicles X took a lot more time because it was a brand new engine HD system. That is not the case here. Same thing with Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword compared to the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. New engine takes a lot longer to do so. So I do feel that this game can definitely come out in holiday 2020. So those are my reasons why that I do feel that it could come out in holiday 2020. However, I wouldn't be surprised if it was 2021 or something like that, just because I wouldn't be surprised if it was. You never know what happens in game development, or they might want to add a bunch of different things that weren't in, because they did say that, hey, these were all a bunch of DLC ideas, but then it got so vast to the point they're like, you know what, let's just go ahead and make a new game anyway. So what do you guys think about my thoughts here, how Breath of the Wild 2 could become the best game of all time, and what other things would you guys like to see added in? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Go and check out the links in the description below. We got Facebook and Twitter. Go and give us a like and a follow on our social media. Hit that like button if you did like this video. Let me know you guys want more content like this going forward in the future, and subscribe to PlayerEssence for this RPG, Japanese, and Nintendo gaming news. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.